The alternative for app service, you can use both, of course, but the alternative is Azure Functions, which is a serverless compute service that lets you run event trigger code without having to have infrastructure, so you don't need to provision or later manage infrastructure. It of course has serverless architecture, so we rely on HTTP triggers such as API endpoints, timer triggers such as scheduled tasks, or event triggers such as event processing, and we are pay per execution, so the cost is pay per execution. For example, for event processing, you can use for IoT data processing. You can think about device telemetry or real-time analytics. File processing like image resizing or document conversions. Message processing like queue processing or event grid events. If the last one is not too clear, that's completely fine. You just remember event processing. API development. So whether this is it doesn't need to be REST API. It can be also from GraphQL endpoint, as long as you can configure this, or actually in both cases, or even more types of HTTP triggers. You can configure them, the APIs, to have HTTP trigger. Authentication event like Microsoft Enter ID, and then there are also integration like API management, logic apps, especially the last one is interesting. If you have, for example, data cleanup, you do it daily, or report generation, which you do weekly, or system maintenance, you do it monthly. For all these tasks, you can also use it. Cost optimization is that there are different pricing plans. We will see them quickly, but in general, you pay per execution. So we'll try to quickly create Azure function. So here I have been accessing this already, but you can find it here, function app. I create one, many different plans. I will create a consumption plan because I don't need to have any decay compute here. That's why I'm picking this up. But you can also try different plans. I need to have subscription, I need to have resource group, and give it the name, function detector. You select the operating system, runtime environment, version, and region. Storage, just leave it by default. Networking, just enable the public access. Monitoring, leave it by default. Deployment, as you can see, this we can nicely integrate with CI/CD, but I leave it by default. Also, I will leave it by default. Authentication, tags, and let me see if we can create it. Okay, and we have it. I go to resource, and this is my Azure function. You will see that you'll get a domain there, and then you can see your function is up and running. Yeah, to be honest, that's it for now, but then you can look around, for example, in activity logs. You can, in the functions, you can look around. I don't want to, for the basic course, we don't really need to go deeper into that, but you can just try to discover what's here. To be honest, all of the options are for more advanced courses, but for example, console, this can be quite useful. API monitoring, so if I go to metrics, then if you select the if you for example want to request, and then after a couple of minutes you should be able to see that we have been executing something here. There's a delay with metrics, but you don't need to know any of those. You just need to know what is for the basics. You just need to know what is Azure function, that's alternative for app service, how you create it, and you pay for per execution, and that's it. You don't need to know anything more. So to be safe, I will just delete it. So I'm not charged too much. And then this will be deleting. I will just give a conclusion that this is a serverless compute where you pay per execution. It's event-driven architecture for modern applications often. Automatic scaling because you pay per use, so it's also scaled automatically. You don't need to manage infrastructure, but be careful about the cost because it can go quickly, very, very high. As you could see, we had support for multiple programming languages. We could also integrate with Azure services, external and different external triggers. And maybe if you are a developer, you might find out that it's a perfect solution for microservices, especially good for event processing. So my Azure function seems to be deleted. I will refresh it here. I think it's gone, and I refresh it here, and then Azure function is deleted. So that's everything for this class. And in the next one, we'll be changing actually already category, because from Azure Compute Services we will switch the topic, and we will be discussing Azure Storage Services. See you there.